any others? Well, if there are no others, I'm going to bring it back to the council, but before, I'm going to say a few things here, because I'm also in the Transportation Committee, and we've had these horror stories come to us at the Transportation Committee. And I would just like to say, as far as I'm concerned, we in the council are representing Atherton residents. Now that means that there may be some other San Mateo County residents unhappy, but we have to represent the residents. And the safety issues that have been brought up time and time again on Holbrook Lane, I think are serious. And as far as I'm concerned, we ought to do this, and we ought to do it as quickly as possible.
Well, Jim, I'd like to say something more, and I think it addresses not only the issue of Atherton residents, but I think it addresses the issue that occurred in 1992. Having been on the Transportation Committee now for, I don't know, 10 years, I think we've addressed the issue and the problem that occurred in 1992. And while we are trying to protect Atherton residents, I think we also included North Fair Oaks people as well. You know, a year and a half ago, we went to North Fair Oaks and they had their community meeting. And it was North Fair Oaks that suggested that they go ahead and put up that sign at Marsh Road and North Fair Oaks, where they'd actually have that sign for a 6-month period at Fair Oaks Avenue that would say no right turn, where you have that merger. And it was only when it went to the county would not put up the sign. It would have been what we all thought a wonderful solution. People on Holbrook liked it, the people on Fair Oaks liked it, but the county wouldn't go along with it. So that was a year and a half ago. It was at that point on the Transportation Committee that we threw our arms up in the air again and said, what do we do? And we thought, okay, we'll look for a no right turn off of Holbrook during certain hours, and it was going to be 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Friday. We knew it was advisory, and unfortunately, so did everybody else, and so we couldn't enforce it. And so it was only this past September when it came back to the Transportation Committee, and we had very limited options. Keep the advisory, don't do anything, or close the road, that we decided we had to look at this closure of the road. We've included the North Fair Oaks community in our considerations. We are going to be going back to them for their input and their thoughts, and hopefully they can understand that we respect them and their concerns, and have been respecting them and their concerns all along. They are equal members in this, and that they will agree that this is necessary. And I believe it's only at that point that we would then institute this 6-month trial period. We will then have numbers by which we could compare its impact not only on the residents of Holbrook, but on Marsh Road as well as the adjoining roads, to make sure that residents in other areas are not going to be adversely impacted. As to the closure of Marsh Road and it going into other areas, that doesn't happen very often, and in the event it does, we do have other roads that they can go onto. But in the routine situation, those other roads are not roads that they would normally want to use. It would only be in the unusual situation where we would close Marsh and you would be diverting traffic that you would want to use those roads. So the traffic counts would be taken at a 1- and a 5-month period during the 6-month trial closure. And I think we would get some good data to indicate whether or not it's working, adversely affecting anybody, and whether or not it should be made permanent. All the time with the input of the Fair Oaks community. So I think we've done our homework. I think we've done it very differently from the way it was done in 1992. I think we've done it very carefully and tried all options for years now. This has not been a hurried process by any means. And we have been very, very hesitant on the Transportation Committee to take this step. We realize it's the last resort, but in doing so, we also realize that we have to be very careful about doing it and obtain all the necessary input necessary and utilize a trial period with requisite data. Thank you.
Are there any other council members wish to comment on this?
Yes. not being on the Transportation Committee, so I haven't been party to a lot of the inputs that you've received. I certainly think the process that we follow here is very, very important, and again, I'll use the term of not wanting to create unintended consequences that we end up with something that maybe not even as good as what we have now. What I would prefer to see as an action plan would be kind of a two-step process. I'd like to have the public outreach piece of it defined a little more precisely. It's kind of a loosey-goosey type of thing right now, I think, in terms of what might be included in that. And it almost sounds like the public process is going to be, okay, here's what we're going to do, and we want to inform you on the thing. If that's not the case, I think that's good. What I would like to see during this public process also would be to get the inputs from the county, North Fair Oaks Council, the Menlo Park Fire Department, actually have them provide input to the town in terms of if they want to take a position or if they want to make a statement on it or whatever, but we invite them to be a party to the discussion and dialogue. And then come back to the council and say, okay, here's what we've learned, and it looks like it makes sense to go ahead and do a trial closure. 6 months to me seems like a long time too, and maybe that's necessary. I don't know, but I would urge you to maybe think about that. If you do a trial, does it have to be 6 months, or could it be something less than that? So that's a position I'm in favor of right now.
Listening to all the residents of Holbrook Lane, I think I was on the Transportation Committee when it was most recently brought up when they're going to do the sign, the posting of the no right turn sign. And I'm sorry that didn't work out. I thought that was a nice solution. And I think that the safety of all of our residents, as it relates to traffic issues, is paramount. We live in a town that has no sidewalks, and we have no real bike lanes, and riding a bike or walking is quite perilous if it's on a street or a lane or a drive that doesn't have enough right-of-way for you to actually walk along. I live at the corner of Emily and Alejandra, and Emily and Alejandra is often a thoroughfare to bypass the Valparaiso El Camino stoplights and to cut through. And we get speeding cars coming down there all the time, and we've got parents walking their babies with strollers 2 or 3 abreast, and you just have to slow down. But it's dangerous. It really is dangerous. So I hear your pain, and I would love to see us do something that can solve that. I have a couple of questions, and one of the residents spoke about this, and that where's our police presence and our enforcement presence? From what the resident said, it seems like recently there's been more of a police presence on the street, and it would seem that there really ought to be something done to monitor that if the traffic issue is so terrible. So that's a question I have for staff. And are there not some other kind of traffic calming measures that we could take on the street itself? I know that on some of the other avenues in the North Fair Oaks, they do have their little roundabouts, and which does deter people from speeding down there. Maybe the residents of Holbrook Lane do not want to have that as part of their neighborhood and their traffic flow, but that